Welcome to the Bariatric Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, mindset mentor, somatic coach, and transformational guide for those on the path to true healing. Whether you've had weight loss surgery or on GLP-1s or simply seeking a new way forward with food and your body, this space is for you. This podcast is a mission to change the narrative, unlearning the patterns that no longer serve you, moving beyond quick fixes into deep, embodied healing, lasting mindset shifts, and true self-leadership. We are healing from the roots, rewiring the mind, regulating the body, and returning home to ourselves. We are here for growth rooted in honesty and self-trust because that, my friends, is the foundation of healing. So grab your cup of joe or your H2O and let's go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Bariatric Mindset Success Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, and I am joined once again by Coach Frances Vogel, who I am so glad has graciously joined me again so that we can talk about the news.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. This is such a pleasure. And I look forward to this episode because so much happens as we transition from one year to the next. And we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about what that looks like for you and hopefully give some people some really great insight into what they can utilize traveling into 2026.
And we are going to be some myth busting fools today because some of these things people already know, but really we want to just tackle that January myth that a lot of people have. Now, I don't know about you, but I would say I've seen a shift since 2019, 2020, where there's less and less people buying into resolutions. And I've even noticed a shift to where people really don't start thinking about goals sometimes until February. Yet I want to tell people that there's no magic in January. What's really interesting, and I'm going to bring this up, you and I talked about this off recording a couple weeks ago, that January is actually named after, fun fact, I think it's a Roman god Janus, who is the two-faced god looking back and looking forward. Yep. And it's the doorway into a new time and into a new year. And I remember seeing that somewhere and thinking, that's so fascinating. And so January is a time that we've just conditioned to be where we make big changes. But what we also know is that, again, January has no special powers. Some people may be conditioned to think, all right, I'm starting over. I have motivation. And we also know that if that actually worked, we wouldn't see people restarting every February. And I want to hit us with some statistics, which I pulled up, is that people who do set New Year's resolutions often are not going about it consistently, or they end up with goals or plans that are too big for what they can really handle. Because, and I will tell people, your brain can't handle that, right? You think you can handle that, but I even have said this on other podcasts where I was a guest. I call it the cheeseburger to salads thought fallacy, or people are like, I'm going to overhaul my life. I'm going to become a meal prepping queen. I'm going to become this. And they don't have the mental capacity. It's not about smarts. When I say mental capacity, is we don't have the ability to make changes that quickly. It's like you install a new program into your computer, but you don't have enough memory or RAM or whatever it is. And it's like the program can't run. It's impossible. So research shows that the majority of New Year's resolutions are not maintained for a full year, and that up to 77% of people who make a New Year's resolution might maintain it for the first week, and only 9% persist and accomplish through the entire year. 23% quit within the first week of January. 80% abandon New Year's resolutions by mid February. And the second Friday in January, which for January 2026 is January 9th, is often referred to as Quitter's Day, as a peak day for people giving up. And you said something before, which I thought was great, is we need to reframe what people perceive as failure because, and I think that goes along with what I'm saying, which is if we put too much on ourselves too soon, we're setting ourselves up for failure, and people have a lot of shame about it. So we need to shift that way of thinking because destined, I hate to say that, to fail. So this is why we need these small little bits and to build consistency over time, smaller shifts. And yet it's not as exciting for people. They don't feel like I'm not doing enough. And it's like, no, you are.
But it's the adrenaline junkies within us, right?
Yeah.
To get that great high out of something new. It's shiny. It's new. We're going to dive in. It's going to be wonderful. And I think that one of the things that when I'm coaching somebody who is new to this journey, whether it be post-bariatric surgery or they're getting ready to have bariatric surgery or been on GLP-1 and having success with weight loss and they want to sustain that, one of the things I'd like to say hammer into them and say often is it's small steps. It's the little baby steps that are going to get you to the big goals later down the road. It's not huge jumps and huge hurdles that are going to get you there because they're not sustainable. And when we were talking about kind of the January, when you were mentioning that, the god of Janus and that kind of thing, the one looking forward and one looking back, that is not a bad way to think of things because, yeah, we do. We need to close the door on what's happened in the past.
Right.
We need to start looking towards the future, but we need to look towards it in small itty bitty increments so that we can be successful. And I think that's one of the things that when we were talking about this, January isn't a fresh start. It's just another moment to practice self-leadership. And where are you and where am I going to take ownership for what I want to accomplish in 2026? I'm not going to sit down and write these huge mega goals for 26 because I know that doesn't work. So what am I going to do?
And the other thing is, most people know because I squirrel. So if it's not evident and if you're somewhat new here, hi, I'm Kristen. I have ADHD. I squirrel hard every time. I don't even make those huge yearly plans because it's like, I want to do this. I want to write a book. I want to, whatever it is, that's like a 3-month thing. If I have these grand year plans, by March, I've moved on to something else. Right. I've turned a corner. Something else shiny caught my eye. I'm at a rave. I've started something new. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I start something, I complete it. But when it comes to those goals that are airy fairy, they're this vision for the future. It's way too out there. And I have forgotten it. I have forgotten. If I don't have a daily action plan where it's anchored in and it's something that is going to support my daily life, it's too far out there. And I think that's what people unintentionally and unfortunately do with some of their health and wellness goals is they make them so big and so grand. And you know this, and I know this, we have some folks that are like, let's sit down and make this plan. And they make it so grand or so big and it has so many moving parts that then they don't follow it. And so what helped me on my bariatric journey, I'm still on it, right? I'm still there, but it's now so much a part of my lifestyle that I don't even give a second thought to it most of the time. But when I was starting it, it was, okay, how do I get more protein? Which is so simplistic. And how do I get more water? Where can I either gamify or play with this or play with that? And then it was like, okay, week 1, now what? Okay, week 2. And it was these small incremental changes, which are not sexy because we are so conditioned again to have this major grand plan of what we're supposed to do. And it's like, oh, I'm going to start running. And no.
If you haven't walked all year long and all of a sudden you're going to start running, that's not going to be successful for you. And diving into this a little bit and getting into the meat of how New Year's resolutions just are sustainable is because we want them to be perfect. We want everything to go according to plan. Let's say that we do. We sit down and we make a plan and it looks beautiful and it follows through with some, major goals we want to accomplish. It's not sustainable because we want it to be perfect. And living is not perfect. It is not pretty. It is not shiny. It has its ups. It's got its downs. It's got its hard days. It's got its long moments, you know. And I think that I look back at just myself. So my personal journey around New Year's resolutions, and I have for the last, I'd say maybe 20 years, my New Year's resolution has always been, let this year be better than last. And it is a very blanket, basic New Year's resolution. And that has been my goal from, like I said, for many, many years. Let this year be better than the last. And I can say, because I have continuously worked on myself and this journey of self-awareness, it has been that way. And there have been hard years in there. There have been really years of lots of grief and struggles, but they have been better than the years before because I am better. I am getting better every day as I work on myself and as I work towards my best version of me I can be. So that's my personal idea of it. Now, I am looking at that differently this year too, and how I can shift that a little bit and create little minor things. But I know that we have to keep things very simple. And how do we do that? We do that by looking at, okay, where do we want to be? And how can we get there by adding in some simple things? Increasing your water, increasing your protein, increasing your sleep, but not saying I'm going to do them all on whatever Thursday, January. I didn't know what day was New Year's Day. I had to look at my calendar. Thursday, January 1st, I'm going to all of a sudden be a high protein eater. I'm going to drink 64 ounces of water every day. I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep and I'm going to do meditation. Oh, well, that right there for a recipe for failure. So I think that we need to, okay, maybe the first week I'm going to do, and so that's where I go to. And I think that we also need to talk about why things get sabotaged.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just a couple other things is the expectations that we have around change, not only about the behaviors we participate in, but the results that we see. So for those of us who have had weight loss surgery, at the beginning of that journey, you're dropping weight very quickly and then you level off. And yes, there are stalls, but as your weight transitions down, you're losing less and less. And so a lot of times people will also get really excited about that loss. And again, they're focused on the outcome. So that focused outcome, and really for clients that I've worked with who are either not bariatric, meaning they have not had the surgery, they might or might not be on a GLP-1. I also work with people who are not on medication, yet they want to lose weight. They're not ready to have surgery. So while my focus is bariatrics, I have worked with people who have not had surgery. And so I will say you are going to look for results between 8 and 12 weeks. I've even had people say, okay, I know I'm going to look for results between 8 and 12 weeks. That's standard out there. Like that's standard. When we're looking at people who are conditioned through diet mentality, which is also why resolutions fail, we're getting there, is one of the reasons is they expect and hold judgment against themselves or blame themselves for what they think or perceive they haven't done right because they're expecting instantaneous results. Folks, your body's not Amazon Prime. You're not going to see results in 2 days. Your nervous system doesn't care what month is. So if you're someone who is a high stress individual and you're highly activated, or you have a high stress job, or you stress eat or emotionally eat in response to difficult situations in your life, your nervous system doesn't care what month it is. Your nervous system responds to the stressors, and there's no flag system or programming that you install that says, oh, this is January. Everything has changed. It just doesn't happen like that. So your nervous system is still operating on chaos and cookies. And you're like, no cookies, no cookies. So you can start to reprogram your nervous system as part of this. And there are ways to do that incrementally and build self-trust. And again, part of the conditioning of diet mentality is this idea of restriction and deprivation. However, we also have to look at at how we're coping. So again, this idea that pressure creates progress is what people are used to. So that's why so much of this is mindset. And yes, embodiment and the body work, the somatic work, but the mindset is we expect pressure. And to your point, perfection. If pressure created progress, and if that's how we created results, we'd be done. We'd be there. That's not the case. So what we've got to do is normalize. We were talking about failure. I would even say mistakes, or normalize that to your point, I may have said it too, is we're going to have ups and downs. Mm-hmm. So we've probably said this in different episodes as well. If you happen to have cookies at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, that doesn't mean go on a bender. That doesn't mean you've ruined the day. That doesn't mean you've messed up your resolution or your plan. It means you had cookie.
3:00 on a Tuesday, that then you can make a different decision the next time you're looking for something, and maybe have some self-awareness next time. Maybe have some reflection on why Tuesday you reached for the cookies instead of the fruit or whatever. And not everything has to have a reason either. Not every time we reach for a specific food, there has to be a reason behind it. We eat because we're humans, right. We do. And there are times where we're eating because there's joy around it. And yes. There are times where we are eating when there's stress around it. So we need to look at, and there's just been so much shame that has been put upon people who are obese and overweight for lack of willpower. And that you and I, we've talked about it. There have been multiple episodes where we've discussed the shame spiral, that I failed. I'm just going to sit here in my bag of potato chips and eat misery way. And we know too, that's not going to serve our greatest good. So it's shifting your thinking and letting that shame go. And sometimes there's deep work that we need to do. And maybe the resolution needs to be, I need to start seeing a therapist. Right. And working through some of the old wounds and the old self-talk so that I can get to a place to where I'm ready to lose some weight and implement some of these bigger goals. Because if our mind is in such a space where we can't even get out of our own way to make some healthy choices, that's where we might need supplemental help. And I have discussed that with people that we coach, that sometimes there's bigger issues that need to be addressed first prior to the basics. I mean, even the basics. You're going to sabotage if you're not regulated. And that is a huge problem for so many of us. And we live in a society where we want instant gratification. We want things that are shiny. We want things that are going to taste good immediately. We want to feel good, feel great all the time. We've got our energy drinks. We've got something to take us up, something to take us down, and that is recipes for disaster for so many of us. I think that when we look about really regulating our nervous system and what that looks like, and it's really trying to find a safe space within ourselves. Finding that safety, finding where we can trust ourselves to then move forward.
Absolutely. And I think what is also key, just to go back to why resolutions fail, there's the perfectionism, and it's also what are we, let's say, making excuses around, or what are we avoiding? And honestly, a lot of people think the work is avoiding cookies. Like, I'm just using cookies as a metaphor for anything. Sure. It could be chips. It could be ice cream. It could be pizza. It could be food of choice. It could be that you are eating something out of the trash. Whatever. Yeah. Whatever you're overeating or grazing or whatever, it could be that it's just a pattern, right? So, but the real reasons that resolutions, or we can even say some people may just set goals, but aren't sticking to them, is that when you're not just outcome obsessed, but scale obsessed, perfection obsessed, weight obsessed. I can't tell you how many times we work with people in our program that will say, I got on the scale, I'm up 3 pounds. Oh my gosh. And it's like, it's life or death, right? So they rely on all or nothing logic because, again, we've done other episodes on diet mentality. We're not touching on that today. You can go back and listen to those in our archives. But holy crap, they ignore the stress and the trauma, the exhaustion, the capacity, because especially for women, there's this push through, hustle, go faster, you keep going, push past exhaustion. And it's that no pain, no gain, almost like a bro mentality. And I think it's actually caused a lot of harm because they also confuse restriction with discipline. You've heard me say this before. I tell our people all the time, discipline, when you think about a discipline, right? Not even to be disciplined, it's to study and learn, right? So when we think of a discipline of study, it comes from the Greek and Latin root to study or to learn. I talk about that in a lot of trainings. If we can reframe how we see discipline, because a lot of people see discipline as a result of early church talk and many of us are influenced by various religious or spiritual beliefs. But the church has shown I'm not talking about any specific one, by the way, but they have created this pattern of discipline as punishment. And really, discipline is a form of study. And I even think of it as like sacred and holy in a good way, but we have a very negative connotation from the word discipline. It's almost like it's a dirty word, right? Or unless you're...
And it's punishment. I think you're right. I think there's definitely, even at home,
you need discipline.
Yeah. Growing up, when you're misbehaving, you need to be disciplined. And how do you get disciplined? You're punished or you're restricted. And so therefore, when we're thinking of food, we're thinking of restriction.
Exactly.
We're restricting. So these are so underlying, and so much of this is so old and ingrained in us that we have to really dig deep into some of these words and decide and what they mean to us. And when you talk about discipline, right, it makes me think of exercise. I know there are so many folks that really are triggered by the word exercise.
Absolutely.
And our body's meant to move. We are meant to move, and you can call it whatever you want. Right. We are meant to move, and we're also meant to be curious about our lives and about different aspects. And when you think of discipline, it means to learn and to be curious. So we are human beings having these human experiences, and these words are being used as weapons against us. And we're being shamed into believing this is our truth. And it doesn't have to be our truth. We can shift out of that thinking. And I think that's where, when we start to work on our own personal selves and try to regulate our own nervous systems, that's where we start, is in what the words that we're hearing, how they make us feel, and how do we respond to them, and how we can shift that thinking and feeling and responding.
And how you identify, right? Because we work with a lot of people who say, oh, well, I'm a perfectionist. Okay, well, we may even want to change your identity around that, because if you identify as a perfectionist, then what other lines of thinking or behaviors are you attached to, or are you participating in? And how do you perceive failure? And it could be one mistake. And here's the thing. If your plan requires perfection, it will eventually create rebellion. And what do we see a lot of times are people who are rebelling. It could be even against what their doctor suggests, or their surgeon or physician, or it could be their bariatrician or whoever's prescribing their GLP-1, because different people get them from PCP or potentially a bariatrician or other types of physicians. So where's that rebellion? And this is also where we want to build self-trust, right? So then when you were talking about the nervous system, this is the piece that everyone skips, right? Because a lot of times what we don't realize is, what do you mean I have to be safe? What do you mean? Our nervous system responds to fear, right? We're driven by fear. If it bleeds, it leads, right? So all the news that we watch is, oh my gosh, XYZ happened, news at 11. They wait until the end of the program to be like, and this cute little dog was saved out of this hole in the road. Isn't that special? That doesn't lead, but the nasty stuff does. And that creates a sense of fear. So we are driven by our nervous system, because our nervous system is hardwired for fear. It's not hardwired for happiness, right? It's hardwired for fear because it's protective. It's keeping us alive. So people sabotage their behaviors because it doesn't feel safe in these situations where changes are put on us, even if we're saying we want them. It's like
good changes can do, even the good changes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And when you're in a place of fear, you're going to go into some pretty immediately. You're like, okay, I'm in fear. How do I calm that? No one wants to be afraid.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Which is a big word, but here's the thing. Okay, I've got to take away, I'm going to make this up. This is all BS, guys. I'm just using this as an example because it's very stereotypical. So it's not going to be where everybody is, but it's okay. You have let's say the peanut butter crackers in your drawer, or you go to the vending machine or whatever. It could even be a protein bar. For somebody, 3:00, you go and get the coffee and the protein bar. So it's January 2nd, you're at work and you've got that thing. Well, I said I wouldn't. Maybe I'll just start over Monday. So then we begin to rationalize. I'm not going to go into the different phases of cognitive dissonance, but what we do is we find either an excuse or an explanation or a way to modify what our goals are to make it okay. Because essentially,
we have to immediately calm down whatever it is that we've gotten fearful of.
Right.
And so we're going to create a story in our head that's going to make that.
I need this because, but it's comforting.
Yes.
It makes us feel safe.
Yes.
So whatever that food is, a lot of times, this isn't everyone, but this is a story that a lot of people don't realize is that food is predictable. So it is a habit, right? So it's a habit. It's that cue, routine, reward. So it's something you expect. It's part of a habit routine. It creates a sense of comfort and safety. And even if you're not triggered at 3:00 in the afternoon, it's predictable. So if you take that away without replacing it, or replacing with something that is less desirable, and you're not prepared to have something in there that is comforting, or you haven't prepared your nervous system, or all of you isn't on board, it's who took my biggie? If you become a toddler, right? So people self-sabotage a lot of times because it's self-protective. And even if at Monday morning at 8:00, you were like, I got this. Thursday afternoon at 3, you're like, I don't know, I might not be able to, because Thursday at 3:00, that's when people talk about willpower. So this isn't about willpower. It's creating a sense of safety and security and nurturing and comfort that comes from other places, pleasure that comes from other places. And this is where change requires felt safety, not force. And we've got to address, like you just said a little while ago, the nervous system states, the fight, flight, freeze, and the fawn, our emotional eating, our avoidance, our procrastination, our numbing, our I'll start tomorrow type of thinking, because you're not a failure for having those things. What it is, and I'm going to be blunt, you're uneducated. Not in general, you're uneducated about your own body, about your own nervous system. You're uneducated about how it works. And this is why we're saying it's the missing piece, because not only do a lot of people, and I was there too. So yes, I had a degree, all those things. It doesn't matter. The degrees don't matter. I didn't know how to emotionally regulate. You may not know how to emotionally regulate. Okay. It's not a blame thing. It is something you can learn. It's something I've learned, something you've learned. We've learned.
Absolutely.
And
we're here. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're here and we're doing this talk, especially because we want you to understand that when we start a new year, whatever that looks like for you, or you have a goal that you want to reach, it's what are the steps in order to make it so that we can get to the end result? And this is, in my mind, we talk about January is not a magical month, right? The magic doesn't happen in January. The magic happens within us. And as we expose ourselves to new thinking, which you were talking about, I'm talking about, these are new thoughts for some people, or it's reiterating some thinking that you've heard before. And it might give you the opportunity, I want to do a little bit more looking into what regulating my nervous system looks like. And you're not going to walk away from this podcast and be like, I got it. I know how to regulate regulate my nervous system now. No, I hope that you walk away from this podcast say, I'm curious about some of this stuff. Let me figure out a way to help myself regulate my nervous system so that I'm not at the office at 3:00 on a Thursday, losing my mind because I have lost every ounce of willpower left in me because I'm exhausted. Right. And I have personally been there. It was how I overcame a lot of my nighttime eating. I had such decision fatigue come 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night that I could no longer talk myself around or regulate myself. I thought from going into the kitchen and grazing or doing things like that. And so I had to work on putting things in place so that when I was exhausted, when I had decision fatigue, that there were things in place that were better choices that led me to better success, higher success rate. And that really moves us into, all right, so we're regulating our nervous system, right? Well, okay, then what? And then I touched on this earlier when we were talking, it's the small things. It's the small steps. It is being very strategic about placing specific things in our way, actually, to try to create friction. And that's one of those things I actually got from How to Create New Habits, Atomic Habits, a great book. He's put friction in between you and a negative thing. Or if you want something to be positive in your life, remove the friction. So
break it down.
How do you build good habits? And a lot of times the things that we're doing, especially around eating, they're habits. They're bad nighttime eating, terrible bad habits for a lot of people. And how do you get around that? And these are some of the things that I utilize to get around the nighttime eating for myself. And maybe with some other time we can do an episode on that because I know a lot of people struggle with that. But it's how do you do these small steps all throughout your day to help you become successful? And we're not just talking about eating here, guys. We're talking about being mindful. We're talking about possibly journaling, meditation, movement, just the little things. But
having a nighttime routine, it could be anything. We were talking about having a morning routine before we hit record, right? You were talking about journaling in the morning. Like we all have different routines. I did a workshop yesterday for our crew on nighttime self-hypnosis. There's so many different routines that we could put in. It's not about doing everything. It's starting with one thing and getting really good and building consistency, because consistency with anything, it could be your water, right? Consistency in general is a regulation skill. It's you're building self-trust because you're following through. So consistency is about regulation and building as a skill. It's not a personality trait. So a lot of times people say, oh, I'm not consistent. Okay, what choices are you making? We have to acknowledge the choices. And some people say, oh, well, I'm on autopilot. Then we've got to slow down a little bit. We've got to slow down. And slowing down, you know this because, Frances, you know this because you've seen, I've had some folks that their brains work 1,000,000 miles an hour and they're down the road and it's like, come back. And we had a breakthrough this week with one of our clients that is someone who's had significant childhood trauma. I will just say this, significant childhood trauma. And yeah, she is a therapist and we're her coaches. And she said something in respect to something that came up and she was like, oh, I get a visceral response in my body when I hear this or when this is said or da da da. And I was like, I lit up and I smiled. Why? Because this is a woman who 2 years ago, she was not able to be in her body for 5 seconds. Like, I know that for some people, it's like it took 2 years, like different people take different modes of time. This is someone who's now actively practicing what's showing up in her body and how her body responds to words, how her body responds to decisions. And she's slowing down and she's not just whizzing through things or making plans. Yes, that's part of the trauma response, which is why it's really important if you have a history of trauma that you're working with skilled people who are trauma informed, because this stuff can be nuanced. And there are some people who don't have trauma. And there are some people who, yes, it could be just a function of ADHD or autism or spectrum or yes, those things, sensory, all of those things exist. And going back, consistency is a regulation skill. So coming back and being able to be in our bodies, it's nuanced. We don't force it, friends. We don't force it. That's another thing, because that does not create safety. And the thing that's important is if we, and I'm going to just repeat this, we over restrict, our body can go into a nervous system panic because of that attempted restriction. And then we lead to rebound eating. We overcommit to things too soon and our nervous system isn't ready and we haven't really practiced, not just mentally, but physically embodied. What are we doing here? Leads to overwhelm, shutdown. And then again, feelings of, oh, I'm a failure. I didn't follow through. So some of these things we want to build self-trust, but self-trust isn't in your head. Self-trust is also in your body. And this is also a really big part that people don't recognize is you're wanting to change your body. And yet a lot of times people are disconnected from their bodies. We have to reconnect where safety, friends, safety is foundational. And then the last thing here, perfectionism can create a fear of failure, which then is like, oh, well, let me just abandon it. So people quit because they're not perfect. So there are these things that we've got to recognize so that small steps become strategic. They're not a perceived weakness. It's not that you can't handle it. It's that you've got to redefine success and build things into your life. And I'll say this, we had also somebody this week who had recently retired. You know, we work with women who are in transition in different phases of their life. And this was somebody who recently retired and she's like, my life is chaos. Where's your calendar? It doesn't matter to me whether it's paper or online, book things in. You are in control of that. So a lot of times what happens when we're in the midst of a big change is that we look to anchors in our life, right? A job or a partner or certain things to anchor us in. And when those anchors no longer exist in a big life transition like retirement, then some people, it's like a free for all. It's literally like you have that teenager in the summer. You know what I'm talking about? I have a teenager, but he's not there yet. It's like the teenager in the summer. It's like, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. What time are you waking up, son? You know,
yeah.
It's like, what time are you waking up? So they're like, oh, I spent all night Netflixing. Okay, well, we need a schedule, right? So a lot of times there's nothing there because there's nothing holding them. So sometimes it's, hey, what are these boundaries with self? It's not just with food. Food becomes the thing that a lot of people will struggle with, but it's also sleep. It's also, okay, how are you moving your body? Are you out of your pajamas today? Right. So there are other levels where small steps could be, how am I sticking to a schedule so that it could help?
So absolutely. And, I love that prior to us getting on this call, we do a little kind of research and we create some notes and stuff. One of the things that you wrote was small steps aren't about doing less. They're about doing what you can repeat without self-betrayal. I think that's a great statement. And I think it really reminds me that it's true. When I say take small steps, I'm asking you or I'm asking myself not to do less. I'm just asking myself, can I do this item and do it honestly and trust myself to do it? And then we move into the kind of the next statement that's where you can't see yourself doing it on a bad day. It's not sustainable. Things that we teach. If you have to get up in the morning and you know it's going to be one of those rock and roll days where you are not going to have a whole lot of time to do anything else except the bare minimum.
Yep.
What is your bare minimum and what does it look like? Yep. And if it is not serving you well, if it is hitting the drive-through and drinking massive amounts of coffee and staying up too late and hitting another drive-through, that is not for your best interest. And so that's where I go in my mind on those busy days. I make sure I have a plan so that it can be sustainable. And there's all of these small steps we talk about. Eating your protein at your first meal a day. We're not decision fatigue. So making sure you have a high protein meal. Trying to make, parking far away. So when you're walking into work, you're getting in some movement, taking the stairs at work. These are smaller things that you can do.
And people poo-poo them. Like I can remember pre-surgery, I was like, I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. I do that now.
Absolutely.
And I make a game of it. And it's totally shifted because I see the value in it. Whereas before my mindset was just about oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
That inconvenient.
Yeah. I want to be as close as I can to get into where I'm going because I have no self
trust or
or whatever. Or, there's a lot of different reasons. I'm so busy. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't have time to park 5 minutes away because I'm overscheduled and, I'm exhausted. And that's something else I think that shifted for me hugely after I lost, a lot of the weight is I was no longer as exhausted because I was fueling my body with fuel, not with highly palatable processed
foods. Yeah.
Or overeating and making myself sluggish. I mean, those are some of the benefits that I've experienced is that I have a lot more energy now than I ever have. And we're recording this right around Christmas. And so there's a lot of parties we're going to. There's a lot of sugar and temptation in foods around. And I have found that if I eat them, they make me tired. And so I have to be prepared for that. Okay, well, that's going to be a consequence if you want to eat those cookies or if you want to eat that, whatever it is, Right. So I feel like there's so many of these smaller things that we can do that can be very sustainable in our lives. And then you ask, okay, how does it work, right? It builds evidence. You build trust. You build an identity. I am someone who follows through with these small steps. And that's something that we've coached about often is when we talk about people who are shifting their thinking, they have to become that person. And sometimes you need to start saying it before it actually really sinks in. I'm a person that eats healthy. I'm a person that moves my body every day. I'm a person almost re-identifying who you are. Like you said earlier about, I'm a perfectionist. Well, shift that thinking as I'm a person who likes to do things a certain way because I enjoy the results, but I'm not going to beat myself up over falling short. And so
I think
that's something. Yes.
Yeah. I think, and that's that self-trust over the intensity. And we're so conditioned for these grand gestures. It's reprogramming. A couple of years ago, I will be honest, when I started it, and I did start it, I think like April or May, it was difficult because I'm someone who would in the past have coffee first thing when I woke up. And I started drinking like a green juice in the morning. And at the time, they've since changed the label, but I read the label, I followed the directions, and it said, wait 30 minutes before having coffee. And that was hard. But I built it into a habit and I would have the green juice. And so we have in our notes, we're having drink water before coffee, not instead of coffee. We're not monsters, right?
Yeah.
But instead and most immediately. So when I notice I call it my green juice first thing in the morning, I notice I'm not necessarily counting that as my water or part of my water for the day, but there have been days where I haven't had it and I notice like, I'm really thirsty because it's probably about 16 ounces that I have it first thing in the morning before coffee. And it's something that I like. And I've had to hold boundaries with myself because there are some days where can I just have the coffee? Why do I have to have this? And my little toddler shows up and I gently just re-nudge her like, hey, this is a commitment that we've made and it's going to be okay. So sometimes having a morning conversation where it can be difficult at times, even after having practiced it, it's like, okay, no, we're doing this first and we'll even make the coffee while we're having this. You're going to be fine. And that's where I know. And actually, there have been times where I've run out and I haven't had it. Some people may say placebo. I feel so much better when I drink my green juice. I just feel so much better. It makes a marked difference for me. So other people, you may have certain things or take certain things. You can't tell a difference. For me, it does. And so that's another piece of evidence that I take.
Yes.
And helps me with building trust is, okay, how do you feel when you have it? Oh, right. This is important to me. It's important for consistency. I'm someone who follows through. I'm someone who, I can do hard things and it's reminding me what's important. And then later in the day, like, wow, you feel good.
Yeah.
Versus when I don't, I'm like, why am I so thirsty or
sluggish? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when also this New Year's resolution thinking, it gives us some space to create new habits. And if we want to utilize this time to create a new habit, go about it realistically. Go about it and say, just like you didn't just all of a sudden have a habit of drinking the green drink. You had to intentionally put that green drink in your life on a daily basis until it became a habit. And so discipline is going to keep that going, but it's going to sustain you long term. I had a very similar experience actually today. I had carved out some time to exercise. I really didn't want to. You talk about the inner toddler. She was not happy. I got to a later start. I had to adjust my schedule, and I normally don't eat before I work out in the mornings because I work out early. I have my coffee, I work out, then I eat. And I ended up I needed something to eat because I knew I was going to make it. I also woke up at 4 this morning, which is a whole nother story, not on purpose. And so my day got long. My day got really long. And I'm like, all right, you're going to have your breakfast and then you're going to work out. And because I knew that sitting here now, 6-7 hours later, that's where it's going to benefit me. I feel so much better because I did move my body, and it wasn't a great workout. I didn't kill it at the gym. It was just a box I checked. And some days are like that. Some days are just a box you check. But because I have a habit of it, it became important. It is important to me. And that's where, like with your green drink, the days you don't have it, you're going to feel it. And I was not going to get through today without moving my body. I knew it was super important to be able to sustain my evening because I have a busy night ahead of us. So I knew that was important to me. And that's where, again, why these little things work, because they build habits, they build trust, and they build the identity of who we are.
Yeah. And even my trainer says, because we've had some really tough workouts lately. I got sick after Thanksgiving, schedule got really busy. It's just life, right? It's just life. And so we've had some really tough workouts. And he's like, you showed up, and the best workouts are the ones that you finish, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. And he's so right. And that rings true. And so it reminded me of that. It encourages us. I can do it. I can do it. Because really this journey, it's kind of like it's metaphorical mountain, like that we continue to climb. There's no there. There's no end, right? Because this is a lifestyle when we're focused on our health overall, and it's that growth. So that's something. So in terms of like breaking old patterns, right? The thing that I like to do is focus on what I want to create, because a lot of the psychological research shows that when we're trying to stop something, it takes up way too much attention. So we really need to have practical shifts that don't trigger our rebellion. So we don't announce to the whole house, we're giving up sugar, everyone, because not only is your nervous system going to freak out, but your entire family is now like, oh, mom or, dad, or they're taking away my stuff. And then it becomes based on fear. And what happens? Because fear is what triggers our nervous system response, is very simply put, that's when people are like, I'm not doing that. That's your rule, right? So we really need to get out of this all or nothing and shift to always something. What is it? What is the something that you're focused on or you're working towards? What's better is not saying, I'm going to quit soda, but to shift to, I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to drink more water. So that's really good.
Switch it out.
Yeah, switch it out. So it's not that we're eliminating it, because that immediately we go into our nervous system, our mind, our fear is like, I'm never going to have it again. And that diet mentality. So it's like when we think of something is better than nothing in terms of our growth, in terms of our consistency, so don't think about giving up cookies. It may be a shift of, I'm going to have more protein and vegetables. Where am I putting that? So again, it's that idea. I think sometimes if people are moving this or utilizing this with a plate, it's like crowd out, don't cut out. Crowd out, don't cut out.
Yeah. And we talked about that.
Effort. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
And I think that just circling back a little bit with what we need to break down and break through some of these things. And that is that we are not in this nothing is perfect. We're not doing anything perfectly. It is, and we've touched on all of these points so many times, magical thinking, the perfectionism,
and restriction and deprivation, and how regulation and nourishment, what helps my body feel steady. If you want a cookie, I will say this, I remember a woman way back when, I don't know, I may have talked about this, my early years when I was at college, and she was doing a plan. I don't remember what it was, but she would eat Famous Amos cookies for breakfast, and she would count them out, and she had a protein first. And I was like, you're on a weight loss program. This is way before I had surgery or anything. It was way before this was a major part of what I did. I was really like confused though, because I'm like, you can eat cookies and lose weight. But it was more about, she had other things with it. And there was more of an understanding of how she balanced it out. So I know clients who, okay, I'm going to have a Hershey's Kiss with my meal or something like that. And if that doesn't trigger you to have the whole bag, right, go for it. If that's going to help you and it's all balanced out in terms of, your nourishment, and it's not leading to a pattern of overeating or lying to yourself or restriction, right? So that's where add before subtract is important, is where am I getting enjoyment out of my food? What's important? Something that I learned from my surgical center was always eat the inside of your sandwich. So for me, it was so easy to let go of bread, to release it. Notice I didn't say quit it or give it up, because I think those phrases are very triggering. It was just no longer important to me, because what was important was the protein and the vegetables, and it was too filling. I wouldn't get my protein. That was just me. But I feel like that also helped me to reframe what was important on my plate. And it also led, speaking of releasing that restriction and deprivation, it then also helped me to release the perfectionism, because it's where am I creating that consistency, the smallest version that I can do. And it's one meal at a time, or one workout at a time, or one glass of water at a time. And I think that also helps to reduce the magical thinking, because guys, if you are in a pattern of magical thinking, and I'm going to say it, we talked about it before, the GLP-1 is not going to fix you. The surgery is not going to fix you. And I'm using that word, but it's not the only thing. We've talked about it works if you work it. You need to participate in your lifestyle. So it's not about judgment, but if you're solely like, okay, fries, because you talked about fries and things, and you're lying to yourself, oh, I'm on a GLP-1, you're outsourcing your success a little bit, and you're not taking any personal responsibility, which is important. So we sometimes have to face the truth of what we're doing, myself included. Like, we all have to do that. What am I doing? And that magical thinking is something that we've got to look at as how it's taking away from our growth and progress, or how it's part of potentially a sabotage. And so progress works, again, when you work it. It happens during vacation, after vacation, in March, in September. It happens in periods of grief. It happens when you're moving. It happens when there's chaos, right? So progress can happen at any time that you choose to engage with your process without perfection. But when you engage in magical thinking and all or nothing cycles, then you're not committed to what is really the ups and downs of life. You're committed to that old diet mentality BS of 5 pounds in 5 days, which is not sustainable. And so change is not fragile. It's your nervous system needs proof that you're there, right? So it's almost like we need to be our own parent that's like, hey, I'm still here. I still care about you, right? We need to learn to not self-abandon. Right.
And we've circled around that nervous system so many times. So people who are interested in this and who really want to do some deeper work, really look into how to help regulate your nervous system. Because I think moving into the next kind of bullet point, it's all right, well, how do we do this? What are some concrete tips on how to get into the new year and make things happen, or get into the Monday and make things happen, right? Because it doesn't have to happen on the new year. Like you said, it's not, right. You can have great progress in March just as much as you can in January or February or May
or any month. Right.
Yeah. Anytime. So there's 4 bullet points here. And I think I'm going to just rattle them off real quickly and then let's talk about them, because I know we're getting to the end of the call. We want to choose one anchor habit. We want to define success by consistency, not results. We want to build a reset, not a restart. And the 4th one is expect resistance and don't dramatize it. Okay. Yes. I have a lot of things to say about all this, but I want to keep it short because I know we're running out of time. So go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Again, that one habit, that one thing, it's something that really just supports regulation or nourishment. And it can be so simple. I think when we define success by consistency, I see it as progress versus outcome goals. How many times did I hit my protein goal this week over, how many times people will focus on sometimes, unfortunately, the wrong things, which is, how many times did I have cookies this week? Let's focus on the protein, right? How many times do you have the protein? Like one thing at a time.
Reframe it.
We've got to build one thing instead of focusing on where we're not yet. And I think that's where we want to focus on that consistency. And in terms of that reset, sometimes our self-talk is really important because we'll spiral, right? We've got to recognize this isn't about punishment. The more that you are connected to punishing yourself, you're part of the problem when it comes to your body, because that's the thing. And then expect resistance is something that I say all the time, is the saying, what you resist persists. Absolutely. So essentially what you resist, it will continue going. So when resistance comes up, when you're a toddler, when you're like, it's like, why is this showing up? And journal about it, ask questions, even, hello, resistance. I see you there. You don't want protein today. Or high resistance, you just want to eat all the carbs in the world. Let's visit, literally entertain what resistance, why is it showing up? Oftentimes it's information, not failure, but it's also a lesson. And it's showing up to teach you something if you're willing to learn from it. And your resistance isn't bad. Your rebellion isn't bad. It's information, it's data, and it's usually a part of you that may be saying, I don't feel safe. This doesn't feel right. I'm worried. I'm concerned. It could be unfelt emotions. It could be a lot of different things in your life, stressors. And so it's important that we are curious, because curiosity, it beats shame every time. And so if we can learn to shift out of shame spirals, shift out of any resistance that we may have by going, wait a minute. What's going on here? What's showing up with this pattern? And it does require some self-awareness and introspection, and it requires willingness to look at ourselves. So here's the thing. If you want to stay blind with your little blindfold on, walking through life, we're not for you, because we're here to bring you to that awareness. And the thing is, you may not like the awareness. And that's okay. It's still teaching you. And that's where managing the emotions come in, because you don't have to like it. It's still going to show up. And that's where sometimes we need to be able to handle our own disappointment, because it can be something we don't know how to carry. And again, we teach that. We teach nervous system regulation. I have some stuff coming in the new year. I don't have any information yet, but if somebody wants more to do this in a step-by-step process with regards to nervous system regulation, with regards to learning that emotion regulation in a trauma-informed place, feel free to reach out and I'll get you some more information after the new year. But that's the thing that I think is important for people to realize, is that it's not if resistance shows up, it's when, because it will.
Yes. And sometimes that when we're in that space where we're learning and discovering new things about ourselves and trying out new things, we're gonna find that we're gonna fall back and get into some bad habits again. And being aware of that and then coming back out of it, that's where the growth really happens, is when you're like, oh my gosh, I would say fall off the wagon, for lack of a better word or statement. And it's when we get back up, that's when we learn so much about ourselves, because we can take a look. It's so hard to find ourselves in the midst of it. It's when we come out of the fire when we discover who we really are. And that's what this is for so many of us. We've been in a burning building for so long, and it's like, how are we coming out? How do we get out of it? And there is no deadline on becoming.
There's no deadline on becoming. And it's, that saying, you don't need a new year. You don't need a new week. What we do need is a safer relationship with ourselves. And honestly, change that sticks. For a lot of us, it feels boring, repetitive. The thing is, it's deeply powerful, and we can make it more exciting. We can make it stimulating. We can gamify it. We can get curious. We can make it fun. And we won't go into that now, but there's so many ways that we can do it. And again, it's not just about, drink my water and do this. We also have to connect it to how we want to feel. And you were talking about moving your body. If I don't sleep enough, it impacts me.
Absolutely.
Those are the things that sometimes I'll track. Is it boring? Some people may say, oh my gosh, I have so many things to do. We all have things to do. And the thing is, what is really important to me, for me, longevity is important to me. So the last thing I'll say is we've got to get clear on what our values are, because if you're doing this to just quote unquote be skinny or just to whatever, is that a deeply emotional thing, or is it tied to something else? Belonging, again, feeling that you are seen and heard. And a lot of times what shows up in a lot of those things are we're doing things, I don't want to say for the wrong reasons, because I don't want to sound judgy. That's not my intention, but we're doing things for external reasons that aren't actually what we want, but they think they're going to get something from it. I've worked with people, nobody recent, but I want to get thin so I can attract a spouse. And so that attaches to our worthiness. That attaches to, well, I want to feel this way. I want to feel that way. Great. How do you feel now? And what are the things that make you feel better? So again, that becoming, who are we becoming, is attached to how we want to feel. But I could tell you right now, if somebody said, hey, go eat a Whopper Big Mac, I would not feel good. I would not feel good.
Absolutely not.
But before surgery, I couldn't tell the difference. There wasn't a before and after. And only now, because I have that nuanced connection with my body, do I know, oh, that's going to make me feel like crap. So that makes a difference. And so it's almost like we have to have a different experience and be curious with what shows up for us, and be truthful and honest to ourselves about what's showing up with sugar and carbs and exercise, whatever. That's where we're going to reconnect, reclaim our connection with self. And that's deeply powerful. So the goal isn't to be perfect in January. The goal is to keep showing up, whatever month it is, right? Could be April, May, June, without hating yourself. So if you have a couple weeks, you may know this. I didn't work out the week after Thanksgiving. I went out of town, came back, I was sick. It was like a prolonged, that's part of life. There's no shame because I missed 6 days of working out. It's like, that's the thing that I think we attach to, I must. And it's like, no, we've got to reject that perfectionistic thinking. And really, we're going to invite you to ask yourself, what builds trust with my body? What helps me to feel safe enough to be consistent? And what are the things that I need to be engaging with in myself? How do I need to be talking to myself that is supportive and encouraging, rather than tearing myself down or judging or criticizing? Because that's often what keeps us stuck, is we get stuck in a negative talk cycle. So here's the thing. If you're waiting for somebody to save you, or if you're waiting for motivation to save you, you're already in an old pattern. Because what's really important is action precedes motivation. And you've got to connect with your emotions, with your goals, with your desires. And this is what's going to help you to build trust, regulation, and repeated action. So that's what I've got. I'm done. Happy New Year. I know we're excited to see people in 2026. We're going to take a couple of weeks off in January, so we may not have an episode for the 2026 season resurface until the first week of February. So this is our last episode for 2025. Thank you for joining us and being with us on the Bariatric Mindset Success podcast journey. Do you have any final words for our closing of 2025, dear Frances?
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you for having me and letting me be part of this. And everybody who's listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey as well. And I hope if you get anything out of this podcast is that you're not alone. This is a community that is growing and we need each other and we need to support each other with love and light and all the happiness that we can offer to each other. So I really appreciate being here and I look forward to 2026 and what it brings.
Yes, and I'm so grateful for you too. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope that you've had a wonderful holiday season, and we are so excited to see you in the coming year. Lots of love, everybody. Bye.